When parents leave their kids at preschool, they believe their children are in a safe, nurturing environment. But what if that trust is shattered? Today, we uncover 5 disturbing cases where preschool teachers in the United States were charged with unthinkable crimes, from murder to repeated abuse. These are not just stories of broken laws. They are stories of broken trust. These real-life incidents will leave you questioning who is really watching over our most vulnerable. Stay with us to the end as we reveal the darkest corners behind the classroom door. Case No. 1. Diana Ornelas. From beloved teacher to murder suspect, California. On May 16, 2024, 22-year-old Diana Ornelas was arrested at the Children's Center of the Stanford community, where she worked as a preschool teacher. The arrest made in front of children and fellow staff shocked both the local community and the wider world of early education. The charge: first-degree murder. Earlier that week, on May 12th, the body of a 24-year-old man named Oliver Waterfall was discovered in a remote wooded area of Santa Cruz County. He had died from a gunshot wound. At first, the police struggled to identify suspects. But by analyzing surveillance footage, digital communications, and GPS data, investigators eventually linked Ornelas and a male associate to the crime scene. According to public records, Ornelas had no prior criminal history, passed all employment background checks, and had been working at the preschool since August 2023. Parents described her as kind, soft-spoken, and nurturing, exactly the kind of person you'd want watching over your child. So when officers arrived at the preschool and handcuffed her in front of children during nap preparation, it didn't just shock, it devastated. Helicopters flew overhead, news vans pulled up. Several parents immediately withdrew their children from the facility. For many, it was their first time questioning the basic trust they placed in the education system. The exact motive for the killing remains unclear. But court documents released during Ornelas' arraignment on May 20th described a long-standing personal conflict between her and the victim. While authorities have been tight-lipped about the nature of their relationship, reporters have suggested the two may have romantic or financial ties in the aftermath. Stanford University issued a statement expressing deep concern and emphasizing that Ornelas had cleared all internal and state-mandated vetting processes. However, the community remained uneasy. If someone like Diana could pass through every layer of screening, what does that say about the system itself? Mental health experts weighed in, calling for routine psychological evaluations, not just one-time background checks. Others proposed enhanced behavioral monitoring and peer review systems within educational institutions. As of June 2024, Ornelas remains in custody, held without bail. Her next court appearance is scheduled for August 15th, where her defense team plans to present evidence claiming she was not the primary actor in the incident. Prosecutors, however, maintain that she played a direct role. Meanwhile, the Children's Center has been operating under temporary leadership with extra security. Miss Diana, once a beloved figure in the classroom, is now a face associated with betrayal and disbelief. Perhaps what makes this case so disturbing is not just the crime itself, but the person accused of committing it. Ornelas represented everything parents want in a caregiver: trustworthiness, youth, and dedication. And yet her arrest became a painful reminder: even those who seem ideal on paper can hide dark secrets. For parents, educators, and institutions alike, the case of Diana Ornelas forces a difficult question. Is our trust in people enough, or do we need systems that go deeper than resumes and reference checks? Case number 2. Rebecca Bird. Years of abuse hidden in plain sight, Florida. In April 2023, a mother in Pinellas County, Florida, noticed something unusual when her 3-year-old daughter came home from daycare. Small bruises on both upper arms. When asked, the little girl hesitated before whispering, "Miss Rebecca got mad." That simple sentence would unravel a disturbing pattern of behavior by preschool teacher Rebecca Bird. who had been working with children for over a decade. Bird's story isn't about a single bad day, it's about a years-long failure of the system to act on warnings. According to later investigations, Bird had worked at 4 different daycare centers since 2014. And at each, there were informal complaints, parents voiced concerns, co-workers raised red flags, but no formal investigations were pursued. Without official disciplinary action, Bird moved from center to center with a clean employment record. After the bruising incident in April, the current center installed temporary cameras in Bird's classroom. In just 1 week, footage captured her shouting at children, yanking one child by the arm and forcing another to sit in a corner for over 30 minutes, all actions against state child care regulations. On May 5, 2023, local law enforcement arrested Bird on charges of child endangerment and physical abuse. The footage was submitted to the Department of Children and Families, which opened a broader investigation. In court, prosecutors presented witness statements and video evidence documenting at least 7 separate incidents of abusive conduct over a 3-month period. Bird's defense claimed she was overwhelmed and undersupported. Her attorney stated that she had been handling large classes alone and was suffering from undiagnosed anxiety. But the judge didn't buy it. "Every child deserves a safe classroom," she said during sentencing. "Stress is not an excuse for harming toddlers." On June 22, 2023, Bird was sentenced to 180 days in county jail, followed by 3 years of probation and a permanent ban from any educational setting. She was also added to Florida's Registry for Child Care Disqualification. The case sparked changes at both the local and state levels. Pinellas County introduced a shared incident reporting database that tracks informal complaints across centers, even if they don't rise to legal action. The Florida Department of Education updated its hiring procedures to include multi-agency vetting and required emotional regulation training for early childhood educators. But for parents whose children were in Bird's care, these reforms felt too late. "Every day I wonder how long this went on before we found out," one mother said in a press conference, and how many other children were too afraid to speak. As of early 2024, at least 3 families are pursuing civil lawsuits against Bird and the centers that employed her. Their goal, not just justice, but accountability for a system that allowed known concerns to disappear into silence. Rebecca Bird's case is not about one teacher snapping. It's about how institutional neglect, poor communication, and lack of oversight can turn subtle red flags into long-term damage. It's a reminder that child safety doesn't begin in the courtroom. It starts with listening, documenting, and acting the first time someone speaks up. Case number 3. Cheryl Dobbs. Forceful handling of a 2-year-old. North Carolina. On the morning of February 6, 2024, a classroom incident at Maiden Rosenwald Preschool Academy in Catawba County, North Carolina, was caught on camera. What appeared at first to be a disciplinary moment quickly escalated into a case of misconduct and physical abuse involving a 2-year-old child and longtime preschool teacher, Cheryl Dobbs. Dobbs, 46, had worked at the school for over a decade. Described by administrators as experienced and structured, she had never been officially reprimanded. But according to a staff report filed in late January 2024, Dobbs had recently become more irritable and was observed handling children in a rough manner that prompted the school to review recent surveillance footage from her classroom. What they found was disturbing. In the footage from February 6th, Dobbs can be seen pulling a toddler by the arm, with visible force causing the child to stumble and fall against the leg of a classroom table. The child cried and attempted to crawl away, but Dobbs lifted the child again and sat them firmly in a corner. What she later referred to as a timeout. No staff member intervened on camera, but another teacher filed an internal report the same afternoon. The child was taken to urgent care by their parents that evening, after complaining of arm pain. Medical imaging revealed no fracture, but physicians confirmed the presence of bruising consistent with sudden force. On February 8th, the school contacted Child Protective Services and Dobbs was placed on administrative leave. By February 10th, Dobbs was arrested and charged with misdemeanor child abuse. The arrest drew significant media attention, particularly after the video was released to the public through a local news outlet. Parents expressed anger and disbelief. "This was someone we trusted," one parent said. "I watched that video 3 times, and I still can't believe it's her." During her arraignment on February 13th, Dobbs pleaded not guilty. Her legal team described the incident as an unfortunate overreaction during a moment of classroom chaos. They emphasized her clean record and argued that stress from understaffing had led to a loss of composure, not intentional harm. Still, prosecutors argued that Dobbs had crossed a clear line. "Being overwhelmed is not a license to use force on children," the assistant district attorney said in court. In March 2024, Dobbs accepted a plea deal. She received 1 year of probation, was ordered to complete anger management counseling, and was permanently barred from working with children under North Carolina child care law. She also agreed to appear in educational workshops as a real-life case study in what not to do in early education. The school responded swiftly to the incident. It implemented new training on de-escalation techniques, expanded peer observation programs, and mandated external reviews of all staff every 6 months. Additionally, a parent advisory board was created to assist in classroom evaluations. The child involved has since returned to a different learning environment. According to family updates, the child experienced a brief period of anxiety around unfamiliar adults, but is gradually improving. The Cheryl Dobbs case serves as a powerful reminder that even experienced educators are not immune to failure. While her actions may not have resulted in severe physical injury, the psychological effects and breach of trust left a lasting impact on all involved. Case number 4. Brandon Vigil, 51. Counts of classroom abuse, Colorado. On September 18, 2024, Colorado authorities announced the arrest of Brandon Vigil, a 31-year-old assistant teacher at the Bright Steps Early Learning Center in Arapahoe County. The charges, an astounding 51 counts of child abuse, stemming from incidents that took place over a 7-month period from February to August 2024. Vigil was hired in January 2024 as a classroom aide assisting lead teachers with toddlers aged 2 to 3. He had no previous criminal record, passed all state-required background checks, and submitted references from his prior job at a church-run daycare center in New Mexico. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But by April, a few staff members began voicing concerns about Vigil's temperament. Several noted that he frequently raised his voice at children and was impatient during transition times. One teacher recalled seeing him grab a child's wrist too tightly, but the center's director reportedly dismissed the concern as a misinterpretation. The situation took a dramatic turn in August 2024, when a new assistant director conducted a surprise audit of security footage in preparation for a routine state inspection. That audit uncovered multiple troubling incidents involving Vigil shoving children onto nap mats, yanking a toddler's arm during a diaper change, screaming inches from a child's face, ignoring children who had fallen or were crying. By August 15th, a formal internal investigation had begun. August 21st, police were notified. The following week, on August 28th, Brandon Vigil was arrested at his apartment without incident. The district attorney's office filed 51 charges, each connected to a specific incident caught on camera. Parents were stunned. "We trusted him. He was always quiet, respectful. We never imagined," one mother told reporters. "I still don't understand how it went unnoticed for so long." The school closed temporarily, while the Department of Human Services launched a full review. A third-party security firm confirmed that many of the video files had never been reviewed, and that staff complaints were poorly documented. As a result, the Bright Steps Center was fined for failing to supervise personnel and failure to report staff concerns. At his hearing on October 2nd, Vigil's attorney said he was overwhelmed, undertrained, and emotionally unstable during his time at the center. They requested a mental health evaluation and leniency in sentencing. Prosecutors, however, presented a damning case showing consistent patterns of aggression toward young children. On November 14, 2024, Vigil was convicted on 37 counts. He received a sentence of 12 years in state prison, with no chance of early release for at least 8 years. He was also placed on the National Child Abuse Registry, effectively banning him from working with minors for life. This case prompted immediate policy changes. Colorado's Office of Early Childhood mandated weekly footage reviews, created a state-level anonymous reporting system, and launched a training program for aides working without direct certification. The scars left behind are not just physical or emotional, they're institutional. Parents now demand transparency. Schools have become more cautious, and lawmakers are paying closer attention to gaps in oversight. For the families affected, the trauma is still fresh. But the Brandon Vigil case has become a rallying point, a sobering example of what happens when silence replaces accountability. Case number 5, Mary Durso-Smith, toddler's arm, broken in special needs classroom, Connecticut. On September 12, 2023, police in Ansonia, Connecticut, arrested Mary Durso-Smith, a 54-year-old preschool teacher specializing in early intervention for children with special needs. Her charge, second-degree assault and risk of injury to a minor after a child in her care just 2 years old was found to have suffered a broken arm. Durso-Smith had worked at the Ansonia Early Learning Center since 2015, focusing on children with autism, speech delays, and sensory disorders. Parents knew her as a steady, experienced professional, and most described her as patient and capable. But on that September day, a normal classroom routine spiraled into something much more serious. According to incident reports, the child, who was on the autism spectrum, had resisted a verbal cue to transition from playtime to snack time. Durso-Smith reportedly approached the child, took hold of their upper arm, and attempted to guide them toward the table. Surveillance footage later confirmed that the interaction was far from gentle. The video showed Durso-Smith grabbing the child by the arm and pulling quickly. The child stumbled, cried out, and was later seen favoring the injured limb. When the parents picked the child up that afternoon, they noticed swelling and immediately brought them to the hospital. X-rays confirmed a fractured humerus, an injury rarely caused by low-impact handling. The school administration reviewed the footage on September 13th and contacted both Child Protective Services and local police. Durso-Smith was placed on immediate leave and arrested the next morning. In court, on September 15th, she pleaded not guilty. Her attorney said the injury was accidental and that Durso-Smith had acted in good faith, simply trying to prevent the child from a potential meltdown. He noted her clean disciplinary record and 30 years of experience in early education. But prosecutors disagreed. They emphasized that the injury was preventable and that educators working with children on the autism spectrum must be trained in non-physical behavior support strategies. In their argument, the force used was not just excessive, it was unjustifiable. On October 27, 2023, as part of a plea deal, Durso-Smith accepted guilt for reckless endangerment. She was sentenced to 18 months of probation, required to complete 40 hours of child behavior management training, and was permanently banned from working with children in any capacity. The Department of Public Health officially revoked her early childhood teaching license in November 2023. The school, meanwhile, underwent sweeping reforms. They revised all transition protocols, implemented calm corner behavior zones, and required ongoing staff training for special needs care. A new reporting system was put in place to allow assistants and aides to document behavioral incidents before they escalate. The child affected has since transferred to a new center and is receiving physical therapy and trauma-informed counseling. The family has filed a civil suit against the school district, citing failure to monitor staff and lack of appropriate training. Community response to the case was mixed. While some defended Durso-Smith as a longtime educator who made one terrible mistake, others argued that no amount of experience excuses physical harm, especially to vulnerable children. This case serves as a difficult but necessary lesson. Working with special needs children requires not only skill and training, but emotional regulation and constant awareness. One lapse in judgment, even by a seasoned teacher, can cause lasting harm. 5 cases, 5 classrooms. And 5 reminders that trust in early education must be earned and protected. The teachers featured in this video began as caregivers, but their actions left deep scars on children and families. These aren't just cautionary tales. They're calls for change. Stronger oversight, mental health support, and transparent reporting systems aren't optional. They're essential. What do you think needs to happen to keep kids safe? Let us know in the comments. And if this video opened your eyes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Because behind every classroom door, a story is waiting to be told.